Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. Alright, so things are still very intense, and as much as I would like to rail at all of the things that I find unacceptable in the current state of the world, it's also important to regroup and ground ourselves and focus on what the real strategy here is. You know, this is nothing new. The kind of stuff that is happening in the world, although the specifics of it are something that we've never seen before. The idea that there are power-hungry people who are corrupt and trying to control the world, that's nothing new. That's been around since the beginning of humankind. But what has also been going on since the beginning of humankind is the power for us to transform ourselves and to become, you can call it metahumans, evolved, enlightened. But the fact of the matter is that we have the ability, and science proves this, we have the ability within ourselves to change our own DNA. So that means whatever you can imagine is possible for human beings to become, you have the ability to change that. And in order to understand that, we need to understand that many of the theories that have been controlling our scientific understanding of human beings is incomplete. To understand that, we have to go back a little bit further into spirituality. So up until 350 BC, there was no such thing as a God that created you. That did not exist. The idea that there was one supreme being that looked down and created you was something that was invented in 350, I think it was 350 BC, by the tribes who eventually started identifying themselves as the Jewish tribes. Now, up until 35 BC in Israel, the Israelites were polytheists. You can go archaeologically and dig it up before the Babylonian captivity, where the priests and the elite were taken off by the Babylonians into captivity. Before that time, everybody in Israel believed in a father sky and an earth mother, and they had little idols that they worshipped. So it wasn't until these people who had been taken away because they didn't pay taxes to the Babylonians, when they came back, they were determined to control their environment, and so they created this idea of Jehovah, the one God who rules everything and creates you. And it is your job to obey this creator that is outside of you. Fast forward into the Roman Empire. Romans were looking to find a more powerful way to control people, so they started creating this idea of Christianity, which brought in this idea of Jehovah the Creator, and you must bow down. You cannot do anything. You must obey your Creator. Your Creator decides your fate. You have no control over it. In fact, it's sinful of you to believe that. And then that gets put into the scientific model. So the scientific model, they actually use the word dogma. The central dogma of DNA. I don't know if it's still taught in medical school today. It may be. But the central dogma of DNA says that DNA controls everything. And so your DNA determines what limitations you have, what strengths you have, what diseases you have. That your DNA actually has the ability to control that, and there's nothing you can do about it. And they've recently found out that that's actually not true. That what is true is that what controls the DNA is, quote, the environment. More specifically, your conscious and unconscious reaction to your perceived environment. So if you start from the assumption that you are God, that means you will respond to your environment as one who has power and choice and authority over what you become, whether you're sick or whether you're healthy. And they've seen this in study with identical twins. You can have two identical twins that have virtually the exact replica of DNA, but one will be healthy and one will be sick. And when you look at the DNA, you'll find that as you get older, this is something else I found very interesting. As you get older, the more variation there is within your DNA. When you're a baby, you have a lot less power over your DNA. By the time you're my age, you have made choices within your psyche that has literally changed the building blocks of your DNA. So we're going to talk about how this actually turns you into having the ability to become a Dr. Manhattan. Because that's really a great example of exactly what happens. There was a stress in his environment, which to him he experienced as a death, completely tore him to pieces, literally. And then you see him going through the process of choosing to reconstitute himself. It was a conscious process. He chose to bring himself back into consciousness. Of course, this is just modern day comic book mythology, but it is true. So I'm going to play for you a video. Don't take my word for it. Listen to a scientist explain to you how this works. I can't play the whole thing at once because YouTube will flag it, so we'll block it up in little pieces. But let's go ahead and just get started with that, shall we?
So I said, what did we find out in 1990? And this is actually, I was doing the pioneering research on this in 1967, but it took until 1990 to recognize epigenetics. And I said, what is it? It's how the environment alters the proteins on the chromosome, but the proteins control the activity of the DNA. While the original story of the central dogma concluded with what we refer to as the primacy of DNA in controlling your life, meaning your life is an expression of your DNA and you have no power to control that. That was the hypothesis. Well, that hypothesis is now incorrect.
So it's important to understand that scientists are human. So we have to have critical thinking here. This isn't just new age wannabe, googly, just everything is love and light and just focus on positive things and positive things will happen to you. We're talking about science here. And bear in mind, scientists are human. So we have to employ critical thinking. This is why I have said and continue to say that the most important tool that anybody can have is critical thinking. Without critical thinking, you will be a slave to your own unconscious fears. You will be manipulated by somebody. Guaranteed at some point you will be manipulated. Because if somebody can take your assumptions away from you and determine your assumptions for you, then you will be incapable of seeing what is the truth. So one of the things that I find interesting is that, especially nowadays, is that people's intuition have been telling them what's been really going on. The difficult part is that not everybody's intuition lines up with their emotional maturity or their critical thinking. So when their intuition tells them that something is wrong, that somebody's lying to us, the problem is then because they don't have critical thinking, they tend to conflate those instincts with their fears and with their fantasies and all kinds of other things, and then they end up being labeled as nutbags, because they do end up being wrong about a lot of things. But the truth is that our instinct has the ability to tell us everything we need to know, and our instinct tells us that we have the ability to create ourselves. And it takes a scientist like this guy who has critical thinking to go, hang on a second, this assumption is an inaccurate assumption. So in order to make any progress in anything, spirituality, I don't care what it is, you must have the ability to be a critical thinker. That means first and foremost, you must be willing to examine your assumptions. And that's what he did. I didn't show the whole thing here, but he goes through the whole process of how he was taught this central dogma of DNA, and as time went on, he then shares this story of how he looked up the word dogma and found that it meant religious rules. And he went, hang on, science doesn't have religious rules. That doesn't make any sense. Hypothesis is a better idea, and a hypothesis is just that. It's a theory that you're willing to test out with experimentation, and you're willing to be wrong. So the second most important thing is being willing to be wrong about your assumptions. I just got castigated by somebody who tried to make me look stupid because I've changed my mind about this whole pandemic thing. But I don't regret any of that. I don't regret having the ability, the critical thinking skills to go, hang on a second, my assumption might be wrong here. I'm willing to be wrong. I want to know the truth more than I want to justify my current belief. And that's still the case. I'm happy to be wrong about anything. The truth is more important to me than anything else. And so this is important because he's talking about it from a scientific perspective, but we've been programmed with this from a religious perspective, from a societal perspective. And right now we are being told that. We are being told that we don't have a choice, that there are others more powerful than us that are going to tell us what our truth is and what our choices are. All right, let's keep going because this is really good stuff. Whoops, what happened there?
So I said, what did we...
Let's see, let's go back to where I stopped, which was right there.
Well, that hypothesis is now incorrect, because now when we put all the information together, how the information flows through the system, it doesn't start with DNA, RNA, and protein. It starts even higher than that. It starts with environmental signal affecting chromosomal proteins, which in turn affects the DNA readout, which affects the RNA readout, which ultimately affects the body in itself. So the whole idea is not the primacy of DNA anymore. If you look at the flow of information, the top level of that flow is the primacy of the environment. And this basically says how you respond to the world in which you live. The environment you're responding to is actually controlling your genetic activity. And I say, and the relevance about that.
All right, so let's talk about that for a moment, or think about that for a moment. Again, he's coming at it from the scientific perspective, which says that your environment determines the response of your DNA. So he says at the end, when you get through the whole thing, you get to the proteins. But what's important about that is, what he means is your physical flesh. So the idea has been, up until his awareness, and who knows how many other people realize this, I don't know. But the idea was that DNA was programmed into you. It determined the RNA. The RNA determined the proteins meaning your physical flesh, your organs. So in other words, the physical part of you is determined by the information encoded in your DNA, and you don't have any choice over that. And then they found out that it actually goes two ways, that RNA, which creates the proteins, which of course is responding from the DNA, that the RNA can go back and encode the DNA so that things from the outside can come in. In fact, much of your DNA is created by viruses that your ancestors picked up through the environment, millions of years ago. We've got viruses that created our DNA from when we were monkeys. So it goes back and forth. It's not just the DNA creates the RNA, which creates your flesh, but your flesh and your DNA have this. So the outside environment can change your DNA as well as your response to the environment. And your first response to your environment is emotional. You have an emotional response. You feel victimized or you feel empowered. I'm the kind of person that when somebody tells me I can't do something, it makes me angry. I don't like being told I can't do anything. I don't like being controlled. So my response is to fight against that. I am very happy that I have that because I have other family members, siblings, who have responded to negative things in their life by letting it control them, and they physically have responded to that with life-threatening illness. I haven't. And I believe that a lot of that has to do with I refuse. When I was, back when I was in my marriage that wasn't working back 10 or so years ago, I had a lot of physical problems, and I was going to the doctors, and the doctors were saying, oh, well, that's just part of your, you can't do anything about this, you're going to be in pain for the rest of your life. And I said, I refuse to let that happen. I refuse to be in pain. I made that decision. I refuse to be in pain. And I refuse not to have everything that I want. And here I am now, pushing 60, and I'm in better health than I've been in my whole life. Whereas my siblings, it's a completely different story. All right, let's continue.
Central dogma made you of your heredity. You can't control the DNA. That's false. We now recognize that the environment, and more specifically, our perception of that environment, actually is what leads off the control of the DNA reading to get you to the protein. And all of a sudden, we go from victim, primacy of DNA, to master, primacy of the environment, because I can change that environment.
So now we're starting to get into the spiritual aspect of it. That you can choose how you respond to your environment. So from a spiritual perspective, here's how I look at this. If we were to look at this scientifically, we would say, the stresses of the environment create a response in the DNA, which then creates an evolutionary response. A fish comes out of the water and grows legs, and then the gills turn into air-breathing lungs, and then et cetera, et cetera. And then you have other beings like whales. I don't know if you knew this, but whales used to be like dogs. They were four-legged beings that walked around on the ground. They decided to go swimming one day, and after millions of years of swimming in the water, they decided to stay there. And then they evolved flippers, and and now these mammals, these air-breathing mammals, live only in the water. And I've always looked at that as that was a choice. That those animals chose to do that. Because think about that. That's not something that happens naturally. There's no reason for a air-breathing, four-legged mammal to become completely, totally evolved to live in the water. It doesn't make any sense. That's a choice. That took effort. Your life is a result of your choice. Whatever stressors you have in your life, your external life, are things that you chose. Before you were born, you chose it because you said, I want to be stimulated to choose something different. And all of the challenges that come to you, and right now there's a lot of people under major pressure on people now, coming from the powers that be. And we can either look at that as something that debilitates us, and we can just stay in the rage and the fear and the anger and the victimization, or we can decide to go, how can I flow with this and choose to turn it into an opportunity for me, like Dr. Manhattan, to become more than I am. All right, let's continue with this.
I can change my perception of the environment, and in doing so, I change the readout of my genes. I'm not a victim. I'm a master of my heredity. But the most important fact is this: we must recognize that those that are still touting the power of the central dogma, this is a very false statement. The idea is, no, DNA is not the control of your life. As we talk about in the biology belief, consciousness, your perception, your interpretation of the world is what controls your genes. Since you can change that, that means then you can change the genetic readout, which then means you are not a victim of your DNA, you are the master of your DNA.
All right. So I found that very interesting. And, again, if you wait around long enough, and if you keep an open mind, and if you keep looking at life with critical thinking, eventually the evidence starts to back up your intuition, your spiritual understanding. But there's a caveat here. It's very easy to let this very inspiring message pull you into a new agey sort of, all I have to do is feel good things and good things will happen. I'm not saying that that doesn't help, because it does. What I am saying is that it is extremely important that we look at our unconscious emotional attachments, our unconscious emotional assumptions. If you believe that you have been forced into this world because there are evil archons of light that exist up in the ethers that refuse to let you evolve, and you're afraid to, and you have to escape the matrix because you're a victim, then unfortunately this knowledge won't be helpful to you. So you've got to drop the victim mentality. And if you're like me, I want as many hacks as I can get into it. I want as many cheats as I can get into this game. And that's where this stuff comes in. So I'm going to be honest with you. I much rather want help. I want something, the equivalent, if I was a professional bodybuilder, which of course I'm not, but if I was and I wanted to win Mr. Olympia, there'd only be one way to do it, and that would be to take steroids, which is horrible for the body. Lots of bodybuilders die very young from that. Arnold Schwarzenegger has had multiple heart attacks as a result of that. But I want to have the equivalent of that. Is there something spiritually that can give me that edge, that can give me the ability to fast track the evolution of my DNA, of just the vibration in my cells? And I can only speak for myself, but I've definitely found this stuff to be the most powerful energetic practice in the universe. I have no idea if there's stuff out there more powerful. I haven't found it. And I haven't found anybody who's done any of these things who's come back and said, oh yeah, that's good, but there's other stuff more powerful. They've come back and said, there's other stuff I like better than that. They've come back and said, that stuff is too intense, I'm going to do this other stuff. Or I have to take a break, this stuff is too powerful. But I've never heard anybody say, oh yeah, there's other stuff far more powerful than this. Now, again, how can I possibly say that I know? I don't. Because anything is possible. But what I have come to find in my life is that when I focus on my soul is God. If there, even the Bible says that the kingdom of God is within you. Even the Bible has to admit that at some point. There isn't anything more powerful than this infinitesimally small and brightest point of light in the universe, which is your soul. Your soul determines everything if you follow and connect with it. And this is the whole goal of spirituality. The whole goal of spirituality is to learn to surrender to your own soul and let your soul guide you, empower you. For me, I respond much better with positive ideas, and so I look at it as my job as a human being is to be the vehicle for my soul to come and have fun in this three-dimensional environment that it wouldn't normally be able to experience, because the soul is infinite. The soul is an infinite joy and bliss, and it wants to encase itself into a human body to have as much fun as it can possibly have. And what we've built into the game is what we're seeing now, which is, we're having some serious challenges to our health, our freedoms. I mean, the fear is rampant. Fear is running every government in the world right now. And entire governments are making complete decisions based on fear, and they're spreading fear. They're controlling others and making laws based on fear. And that creates the very thing it is seeking to avoid. Victimization, fear, unexpressed anger. This creates disease. This creates alterations in your DNA which make you more vulnerable to illnesses. It is your response to your environment that has a direct effect on your DNA. You literally encode your DNA based on your response to your external environment. The spiritual person takes that one step further and says, not only am I responsible for how I choose to respond, which doesn't mean that you can't be afraid and you can't be angry and you can't be sad. That's not what I mean. Emotions are just reactions. They don't have any power in and of themselves. You should have all of your emotions. It's when your emotions dictate your assumptions. When your feeling of fear then creates a belief that they're doing it to me, that there are false beings of light who are telling me that I cannot, that I have to reincarnate, and therefore I can't trust any being of light. When I die, I mean, that is such a limiting belief. That belief creates an assumption. That assumption, then, your DNA is like a computer. It goes, oh, we're victims? All right, I'll encode that into the DNA. I'll encode a victim mutation. And then the next thing you know, you have some brain disease, or you've got cancer, or you've got something. I've learned in my own life, I can't speak for anybody else, but I've proven to myself that my decision about what I want for myself actually determines my physical body. And that's what this guy is saying. He's saying your environment, your outside influences, and your response to that then encodes the DNA. The DNA then encodes the RNA, and the RNA then creates the protein, which is your physical body. And so something like this, the more, by the way, those of you who are practicing the 90-day challenge, if you go to thunderwizard.com and look for it, you find it. Those of you who are practicing that, I want to give you the opportunity to imagine your wildest fantasy for yourself. Literally everything and anything that you want for yourself, as long as it's connected to your soul. In other words, you can't come back to me and say, oh, well, I want to be able to control other people and have people's heads fall off, or I want to make other people miserable. That won't work, because your soul has no interest in that. So it has to be aligned with what your soul wants. And your soul always wants the best for yourself and everybody else. So you can't make it about that. Once you get into that control thing and you want to control other people, that's not your soul talking, that's your fear. So, we are coming up on the 19th of November, which, in a couple weeks from now. Before that time, I'm going to be sharing with you a ritual that will be an extremely powerful ritual that will involve energy work, that will involve working with runes, working with the 8 directions, bringing in all the power of the 9 worlds, using the runes to then focus that power towards achieving something in this physical world. And then we're going to be doing an extremely powerful mantra from the god Narasimha. Narasimha is the fierce expression of Mars. The Mars expression of the god Vishnu, who is the soul. Vishnu is the only god that is an avatar. Vishnu is the only god that becomes human to destroy corruption and negativity in the world, to save human beings. We are going to call upon the most fierce aspect of Vishnu in a mantra. And the thing about Narasimha is that he becomes so absolutely, ferociously furious when he destroys evil that he can't let go of his anger. He becomes so angry that he can't calm himself. So once we've released that power of the soul to destroy negativity, then we're going to do a second mantra for Narasimha, which will calm him back down and make him peaceful again, which will calm you down. If you're full of rage, if you're frightened by what governments and the powers that be are doing right now, if you're frightened, it means underneath that you're also angry. So I want you to feel free, if you want to allow your fear to become rage. We're going to channel that rage in a spiritual way so that you don't harm yourself and nobody else is harmed. You get rid of any victim mentality that you're carrying. We release that rageful, righteous anger onto the world on an energetic plane. We don't do anything on the physical level, only spiritually. And then we'll do all the things that I mentioned, and then we'll calm it down. So we're going to do this in 4 stages. We're going to do 3 days with the Narasimha mantra, the energy work, and 1 specific rune, which I won't tell you what that is yet. In the next 3 days, we'll add a different rune. We'll replace a different rune in there. And on the last 3 days, we'll have a 3rd rune that we're going to use. And then the last 3 days of the 12 days, we're then going to calm things down, bring things back to a peaceful place. And then it won't matter what anybody does to us. What they want to do to us, we will continue to be bulletproof. So this is a question and answer. If you have a question, please write the word question in all caps and then the rest of your question out to me, or share an honest feeling. The rest of it, just letting you know, if you're dumping your feeling and you're dumping your opinion, there's a good chance I might psychoanalyze you and show you something about yourself you don't want to see. So the safest thing to do is to ask a question or share an honest feeling. Having said that, let's go ahead and take a look. If there are any questions here. Agent of the universe, honest feeling. I've been so resentful that I'm tempted to become an eco-terrorist, turning my wrath into helping the earth. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as an eco-terrorist that helps the earth. So let me just tell you right off the bat, I know you, agent of the universe. I know your condition, and this is how you respond. You respond in extremes. You must learn to stay in the middle. You, of all people, must stay in the middle. So you're just sharing your feeling, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with having that feeling. But obviously, I have to caution you against doing something like that for obvious reasons. Vincent.thunderwizard.com says, hey, Mahadeva. Vincent.thunderwizard.com is one of my astrologer's certificate holders. And if you go to his website, vincent.thunderwizard.com, you can get a reading from him. Or you can just go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. Jedi Black Knight. I've always had great admiration for... Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's who that was, Bruce Lipton. Olivia Rackley, question, have you ever met anyone who gets physically sick from being around a lot of people for long periods of time? Yes. Like the particular form of life force energy humans produce is disorienting? Yeah, so Olivia, it's always good to personally attach yourself to the question. You're asking this in the third person. Are you talking about yourself? If you are talking about yourself, you're better off revealing that, because my job is to help you. I can't help you. This isn't just about something off, have you ever met somebody with 3 eyes? Is this about you? Do you want my help? If so, ask the question again in a way that I can help you in whatever it is that this relates to you. Agent of the universe. So I'll just read what you have to say here. You say, I feel like I have massive magical powers that can help or harm anyone that comes in contact with me. Anyone who causes me harm suffers. So this is infantile. It's not a judgment, that's just a fact. This is not reality. This is delusion. So again, I know your personal situation, and this is common with your personal situation. It's called magical thinking. Magical thinking isn't what I'm talking about when I say that you can use energy to change your DNA. That's not magical thinking. Magical thinking is a psychological term where somebody is delusionary and they take their unresolved feelings and they create an unrealistic fantasy. So you're verging on psychosis here. That feeling, by the way, it's just a feeling, so there's nothing wrong with a feeling, but this means that you haven't individuated yet. So what happens with little kids? Little kids all little kids end up hating their parents at some point. At some point, when you get to be 3 or 4 years old, every little kid goes through a period where they walk in and they tell mommy, I hate you. And I wish you were dead. They even say things like that. Now, a good parent says, I know, come here, I love you. They're still saying, I hate you, I want you to die. And the mommy says, I know, I still love you. That's okay, you can have that feeling. And what they're showing is that the child's feeling of hatred, anger, doesn't affect the mom. The mom is individuated. The mom knows that just because you have a negative feeling doesn't mean that it's going to hurt me. In other words, then the baby learns, or the infant learns that, other people's negative feelings won't hurt me either. So the projection of what you just said, agent of the universe, is that you think everybody else's negative feelings has the power to destroy you. So you have to understand the power of projection. Psychological projection means you project onto others the feelings that you yourself are unwilling or unable to see. So what this means is that you believe that other people have magical powers that can help or harm you, and that when you come in contact with them and you're angry with them, that they will cause you harm and make you suffer. But because you have more of a less evolved, an immature response to it, then you are responding like that little 4-year-old who believes that they can kill their parents by hating them. Now, what ends up happening with the child whose parents doesn't love them accurately or isn't individuated, isn't healthy, is that when the little 4-year-old comes up and says to mom, Mommy, I hate you, I wish you were dead, mommy smacks him across the face and says, how dare you talk to me like that? I'm your mother. And then the child gets the feeling that, my negative feelings have the power to kill. And I can't kill mom, I have to. So they stuff all their feelings down. And this is how you end up with narcissists, people like that. So what you just said, it's great that you're aware of that feeling and that you are able to share that. It means this is your narcissism. So this is what I was talking about. There's a difference between understanding your soul. Your soul wants you to be infinite. Your soul wants to tell you that you can do anything, that you're a magical creature that can do anything. But your soul never will ever say to you, you have the ability to destroy that person with your thoughts. Your soul will never say that, because your soul lives in a quantum field. A quantum field is what you think and what you do, ironically, has the ability to vibrate and influence somebody else. So your soul is never going to tell you to do something negative to somebody else, because since you're vibrating on a quantum field, whatever negativity you put on that person is going to come back on you. So one of the things that kids say, which is accurate, is sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. That's accurate. That's just karma. So agent of the universe, that it's okay to have those feelings. Understand that it's time to evolve beyond that. And for you especially, you go in extremes. You have to stay in the middle. So in the middle, you acknowledge you have these feelings, and you understand that it's not coming from your soul, it's coming from your wounded inner child, and that you comfort yourself in those feelings of rage and hurt and fear and anger, and you take positive action. Baba Junzo question, can we worship the runes or maybe an individual rune on an altar like a yantra? Sure, why not? I don't see any reason why not. Olivia Rackley, honest feeling. When I am around crowds, I feel my prime meridian is like rebar and my dantian are like rocks, and I can't think clearly, and this I feel hopeful to change. Well, I'm glad you said that. Again, this represents extremely old childhood trauma. You may honestly be somebody who's very sensitive. I'm one of those people. In fact, I remember, again, when I was married probably 15 years ago, and my now ex-wife went to Las Vegas, and she wanted me to go with her. And it was a work thing. I do not like Vegas. I don't like the vibe there. I mean, the tremendous unconsciousness there. I don't like it. It makes me very uncomfortable. And I remember at one point, I was curled up in the corner because I was just so uncomfortable. And she went to touch me. She said, "Oh my God, you're cold." So I pulled all my energy in because I can't stand it. Now, part of the problem was that I allowed her to take me someplace I didn't want to go. So that just added to my feelings of being a victim. I'm sure I could go to, if I chose to, I could go to Vegas and I could be fine. I could go in as much as I wanted, in and out. So what this means, Olivia, is that you feel powerless over other people, and it means that you have very porous boundaries. And so this is something, if I haven't said this to you before, I think I have, you would benefit greatly from therapy. You really need to go in and look at those wounds, those childhood, perhaps even wounds from infancy having to do with your psyche, and learn how to empower yourself. The energy work that we do here, which goes into the heart and releases that, is also incredibly healing for that. So I appreciate your feeling, I relate to it, and I recommend that you continue to do the work to heal that. Jill Marie, question, can you please repeat the meaning of the word no, as in no consent? I don't know what you mean by that. Please repeat the meaning of the word no. I mean, the word no means no. I don't know. I don't know. It sounds like you've got some secret language with me about this that I don't remember having. It's just real simple. We have the right to say no. We have the right to say no to anybody who tries to make us do anything we don't feel comfortable with, we don't feel safe doing. We should always listen to our instincts. When somebody is making choices for our health, for our nutrition, for our empowerment, for our thoughts, for our beliefs, for our religion, we should always say no to somebody who tries to make us do something we don't feel is good for us. Olivia Rackley, honest feeling. When I'm around crowds, I also sometimes experience hot, itchy hands, electricity under my skin, and telepathy. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about super empaths. So what you're saying there, you also say, I'm afraid that by strengthening my energy, this will get worse. No, it won't. What this means is that this is a fear reaction. I mean, think about it. What's happening is that the blood is rushing to your skin. Your nerves are hyper-stimulated. So your body is having a fight or flight response. And it's so intense that you're having these intense feelings. So this is psychosomatic, meaning soma means body, psycho means the mind. It means that your body is responding to an experience of the mind. And that's all it is. So energy work, so you're confusing a biological response to energy work. Some of those symptoms are the same. When you do energy work, you have some similar symptoms, which is you will feel warmth in the hands, you will feel maybe some blissful electrical tingling. So the nerves are responding to the energy. So, but the difference is that it's a pleasant feeling. What you're talking about is not pleasant. And the other thing is that if I were to go to Vegas, I would do the spirit fighting practice here. I would do that like really super hard until I could feel my aura expand. And then I would be able to walk through that and not have any response because my aura would be so much stronger. And other people's stuff would just bounce right off of me. So the opposite will happen. If you do the energy work, your aura will expand, your energy will become stronger, and you will become less sensitive to other people's energy unless you choose for it to be that way. Now, it's also possible, and I've had this experience where I've walked through crowds and I've been able to see and feel everybody's unconscious, emotional, unresolved issues. But because I'm in a place of neutrality, it doesn't bother me. I'm aware of it. I let them have it. They haven't asked for my help, so I don't pull them aside and say, you need to go back and tell your wife. So understand that being an empath is not a spiritual gift. And what I mean by empath is that you walk in and you can't filter out other people's thoughts and feelings. That's not a gift. That's actually a defense mechanism that comes, and in fact, every single person that I have worked with, talked to, or observed who claims to be a super empath, every single one of them had major childhood or infant trauma with their family of origin. So when you're living with narcissistic, abusive people, bear in mind, little babies and little kids are empaths. They don't understand language, but they respond to energy. So they know what everybody's feeling about them. You know, if somebody walks in the room who's really angry, a little kid is going to start crying. You know, even if they can't even see the person. Like if you put like some kind of a partition and you have a little baby in a basket and you have a murderous, psychopath who doesn't do anything. You just wheel him in the room and leave him there. The baby will start crying. In fact, you can tell a lot of times that when you've got when people are walking around, everything's fine, and the baby's constantly crying, it means that there's a lot of unresolved stuff going on that people aren't voicing. Babies pick up on that, and they end up taking it on because it's a survival mechanism for a baby to know what the energy is around them. And so I don't know you. You haven't told me any of this. I'm not having a psychic experience of you. I'm simply guessing, and I'm willing to be wrong, but I'm almost certain that you grew up in a very dysfunctional, abusive home where you were not allowed to have your feelings, where you were not allowed to have your negative feelings. And on top of that, you probably were surrounded by people who were angry all the time, abusive. They yelled at you, they scolded you, they rejected you. And this made you very hyper intuitive. Because as a little kid, you have to know when angry daddy is about to unload so you can get the hell out of the room or go and say or do something that will calm daddy down so he won't get upset. This is what a super empath is. It's a defense mechanism. It is not a spiritual gift. And you're expressing that this is an uncomfortable experience for you. So the answer to that is to individuate learn to have all of your thoughts, all of your feelings. The spirit fighting practices and the lightning qigong will empower your aura so that your aura will become stronger and stronger. And then you won't have to then use that defense mechanism to try and figure everybody out. And what is everybody thinking? You know, super empaths will say that they have this spiritual gift where they can tell when somebody's lying. That's like one of the first things they say. An empath knows when somebody's lying. Well, why do you need to have that? You only need to have that if you live in a very dysfunctional environment where people are not authentic with their feelings, and you have to figure out what their real feeling is so you can avoid end up getting used or hurt or damaged in some way. So it's a muscle, and empathetic awareness is a muscle. So when you've been, you lift weights long enough, your muscles get big. When you put all this time and effort into constantly trying to figure out what people are thinking and feeling so you can be able to avoid their rage and anger and learn to have control over them, then you're constantly in that state. It's not a healthy state. So I encourage you to do the energy work, learn to be within yourself. When you learn to allow yourself to have all of your negative feelings, then you'll be around other people, and when they're having a bad day, you'll go, oh, that's too bad, they're having a bad day. And you'll know it has nothing to do with you. Okay? What else? Agent of the universe. Again, I don't know what this is. Is this an honest feeling, a question? I really want to, here's the thing about by the way, I hope that you are in therapy still. If not, you need to be in therapy like on a weekly basis. You know that. I won't expose what it is, but you know that you have something that needs that. So bear in mind, none of these things are good. That you used to call yourself God Emperor. This is not a good thing. This is exactly what I was talking about. This is a self-defense mechanism. It comes from fear and insecurity. If you really want to be the strongest person you can be, then what you need to do is learn how to think about everybody around you being healthy, prosperous, and happy. Try and put your brain into how can I magically think other people into being healthy and happy? Because think about it, if you're God Emperor, why do you have to worry about controlling and fighting against other people? It's the weakest possible thing you can be. And I know what you want is to be strong. That's your fantasy is to be this super being. So be a super being that has nothing but love for anybody around them, and you're so empowered within yourself that nothing anybody does bothers you. And that's why it's okay with you that they do and think all the things you don't want them to do and think. You say, I attempted to trick my brain into believing I'm God and magical powers in the hopes that I become those things on earth. Why do you have to trick your brain? Why do you have to have such violence against yourself? Why do you have, tricking somebody is it's a violent, controlling act. It's abusive. Why are you abusing yourself? Work on loving yourself. You don't have to trick yourself. It means that you think that you don't like who you are, and you need to trick yourself into becoming something you're not. Why not start from the assumption that you're already this beautiful, wonderful, loving, powerful being that everywhere you go, the flowers bloom wherever you are, people are happy because you're in the room. Isn't that what you want? Don't you want to walk in the room and have somebody smile, make you feel good? Why would you want to be something other than that? The answer to that question is because you're afraid. So hopefully we can work on that together. Vincent.thunderwizard.com. Honest feeling. My mom's passive aggression towards me seeking therapy enrages me. Yep, well, that's because it's threatening to her. So I can understand your rage, but you can have compassion for her. This is another reason why it might be a good idea for you to get out and be on your own, as you've already said. I wish she was more supportive. Well, she is who she is. There's nothing you can do about who she is. And unfortunately, you've gotten whatever you're going to get out of your mom. You're not going to get anything more. She is who she is. You have to accept that. And asking her to give you something she's incapable or unwilling to give is abusive. So the more that you stay there languishing and being angry that she's not supporting you the way that you want, that's actually destructive and abusive. Having said that, don't judge yourself for those feelings. You then give that to yourself. You then imagine you're there with your inner child and you love yourself the way you want mom to love you. And again, this will be done much more easily if you're on your own in your own environment. Say, I'm feeling emotionally burnt out for a lot of reasons. Yeah, well, that's very tiring. Being angry at somebody, which is a form of trying to control them, and you're trying to get a dog to play chess. You can spend the rest of your life trying to teach a dog to get its paw around the chess piece and move it, and you can spend your entire life trying to teach a dog how to play chess, and it never will. It can play fetch really good. It can do all kinds of other really wonderful things, but it can't play chess. And your mom cannot support you. She's not capable. So stop trying. It's very sad. Now you can mourn. Instead of being angry, you can mourn. It's a tragedy that you didn't get the love you deserve. All right. Film sample CG question. How can I pay any course if PayPal is banned in my country? I have no idea. I don't know how to help you with that. Yeah, sorry, I don't know how to help you. Film sample CG question. If somebody learns their Aruda, let me see. Yeah, no, I don't know any other way besides that. What country are you in that PayPal is banned? That's kind of a bummer. Film sample CG question. If somebody learns their Aruda Lugna, is there a possible danger for that person to use that knowledge unconsciously, manipulate people destructively? Yes and no. Let me answer the no question first. Your Aruda Lugna is how people see you, whether you like it or not. Some people like their Aruda. By the way, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. You can get an astrology reading from any one of my astrologers, and they will tell you what your Aruda Lugna is. So when you're born, you are given what's called an Aruta Lugna. Lugna means your ascendant, it means yourself, basically. Aruda means reflection. Loosely translated, actually means the mount, but it functions as a reflection. So in other words, when you walk in the room, it's as though you've got a mirror right here. When you walk in, they don't see you. They're seeing you bouncing off of a mirror. So that's what they see. The mirror reflection of you is what they see. So the mirror is it's as if the mirror has also this built-in little projector in it. So let's say you walk in the room naked, but your mirror makes it look like you're wearing a three-piece suit. So you walk in, the mirror is actually, so it's not like people are talking right at you, they're talking at the mirror. And in the mirror they go, wow, I really like your three-piece suit, you're obviously a businessman. And you go, no, I'm actually naked, I'm not wearing anything. And they say, no, I'm looking at your suit. You say, no, I'm telling you, I'm standing here naked. Why can't you see me for who I am? No, I'm looking at your suit. It looks great. That's your Aruda. People see your reflection regardless of whether you like it or not. A lot of people spend a lot of time trying to talk people out of their experience of them. You can't. So the only thing to do is to learn what that is. A lot of people like their Aruda. They go, yeah, I like the idea of looking like a businessman. That's what I want to be. So I'm not one, but you think I am? That's great. I love that. Yeah, I'm a businessman and, oh, really? Can we hire you to be the CEO of our company? Yeah, absolutely. That's your Aruda. If you walk in and you think that if you feel as though you're a spiritual priest who is filled with deep, mysterious knowledge of the universe, but your Aruda, your mirror has you dressed in, again, a business suit, and you walk in and you start talking about the scriptures say, and people go, what is that? what is that businessman doing talking about religion? He must be full of crap. Why is he trying to pretend to be something he's not? Like, no, I'm telling you, I have the soul of a priest. Why do you keep telling me I'm a businessman? But if you realize, oh, people think I'm a businessman, then that is how you then need to present yourself. And when you align yourself with the mirror reflection of yourself, then people want to give you money. They want to give you success. You will be you'll be successful in life if you drop your ego about who you want people to see you as, and you allow yourself to be seen as how they want to see you. So as I said, if you feel that way, it's great. If you don't, like me, I never felt like my Aruda. I have a damaged moon in my first house in Leo. My moon is damaged because I was born during the new moon, which is bad. So I had this damaged moon in Leo, which is the king, the lion. But when the moon is normally there, it's great. If the moon is empowered. But if the moon is damaged, then you have this very sensitive wallflower. In fact, when I went to kindergarten, the first day of kindergarten, I didn't speak. I was so shy I couldn't talk. I couldn't even say, I remember one girl came and said, "Hi, my name's so-and-so," and I just stood there and looked at her. She said, "God, what's your problem?" and walked away. I was so afraid I couldn't even open my mouth. Does that sound like me to you now? No, that's because my Aruda is completely different. My Aruda is the warrior of balance, the warrior of healing, and the third house, which is communication. So when people look at me, they see me as this outspoken warrior for justice and goodness and all that, which is what I do on this channel. But I didn't like that for the longest time. But now I know. So I present myself in public exactly like that, and people respond well to that. But when I tried to hide that, not only was I unsuccessful, but people were afraid of me. Because the thing about your Aruda, to get to your question, is that if you don't express the positive aspect, if you don't embrace your Aruda and express it to the world, if you try and hide it, your Aruda comes out, but it comes out negative. So let's go back to the example of the person who feels like a priest, but people see him as a businessman. Now, if he tries to downplay that and say, "I'm not a businessman," if he shows up dressed in priestly robes, people are going to look at him and think that he's lying to them. They're going to go, "This guy is out to he's a shyster and he's trying to steal our money. It's obvious he's only interested in money and he's pretending to be this priest. He's going to con us out of our money. He's a cult member, They're not going to trust you. They'll think that you're out to destroy them and hurt them. When I try and hide the warrior in me, I end up looking like a serial killer. For instance, instead of me being out here like this, if I try and, I end up looking like I want to slice your throat out. So people were more afraid of me when I was pretending to be this, or when I was trying to express my sensitivity. People were more afraid of me. So can you use it to unconsciously manipulate people destructively? No. If you try to hide from your Aruda, people will not trust you. So you won't be able to manipulate them. They'll think you're trying to manipulate them even when you're not. When you actually use your Aruda, and if you, let's say, consciously wanted to try and manipulate people with your Aruda, they would like it. So if you walk in the room and and they think you're a businessman, and you say, by the way, I am the best salesman in the world, and I have this bridge I want to sell you. And if you say, and listen, you got to be careful, because I'll sell you the Brooklyn Bridge if you let me. Instead of people going, "Oh my God, this businessman," they'll go, "That's awesome. Tell me about what you sell. I've got some money saved up." So it doesn't matter if you can't harm somebody when you're operating from your Aruda, as long as you're operating from the Aruda. Which is why I can get away with doing things that normally people can't get away with. which is I can tell you to your face why you need to, where you're screwed up and why you need to do this and wake the fuck up and grow the fuck up. That is Mars in the third house. That's what Mars in the third house does. And so when I do it, of course, there are some people that don't like it, but there's a whole other reason for that. But a lot of people respond very positively to that. In fact, I just, did that recently in the comment section, and the person came back and apologized and said, "You're absolutely right. That's exactly what I needed to hear." So it's technically on paper, it's a negative thing, but it's my Aruda. So if I do that and I do that thing that's supposedly bad, as long as I'm operating from my Aruda, it will always have a positive impact. And so you learn to operate from your Aruda with the understanding of this isn't about me. I'm in costume and I'm showing up to play my role in the world, and I need to play that to the hilt because that's what's helpful to people. And so you go in there with an attitude of trying to help people. When I tell people, listen, you need to grow the fuck up. It's time to wake up. Stop being such a pussy about everything. I'm doing it because I care. I honestly care very deeply, and that I know that I may be the only one that could talk sense into this person, and this is the only thing that's going to slap them into reality. And while I don't do it to get you to like me or to care about me or love me, I don't even care if it hurts your feelings. I'm only interested in what the end result is. So I'm thinking about what is best for everybody. So as long as you think about what is best for everybody and you selfishly do it for your own success, everybody wins. It's a way that the universe dangles a carrot in front of you so that you can use your selfishness in a way that ends up helping people. And if you don't know what your Aruda is, you can go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and find out. Jedi Black Knight question: does the mirror aspect of the Aruda have any connection with the mirror dimensions covered in the Mao Shan course? No. The Aruda is a bounce, it bounces off the mirror. It's not even like you're looking in a mirror. You're looking at a refraction. It's the light refracting off of somebody and showing up different. It's an illusion. It's a total illusion. The mirror that we're talking about is the mirror between the physical and the non-physical. The yin and the yang, the dark and the light. That's the mirror we're talking about. The mirror between this world and the next. PayPal is banned in Turkey. I'm not there yet, but I will be soon. Why? Why would they do that? I don't understand that. Well, I mean, it's something for me to think about. If I figure out a way that I can, do things in a way that, if it serves me financially to find another way, I will. Probably won't. So I don't know how to help you. I wish I did. No more questions? All right then. So, coming up soon. I'm going to start giving out different rituals. Bear in mind, the ritual that I'm going to give out, somebody contacted me on my Facebook and said, hey, I want to befriend you. I want to be part of this ritual thing. And that's not how that works. I'm going to come on here and I'm going to make a video. And in the video, I'm going to tell you exactly what the ritual is. I will have 3 different rituals. They're going to be basically the same, that there's going to be some slight differences based on what aspect of my program you're connected to. So if you're just here on the free YouTube channel, you're not subscribed to anything, you just come and watch the videos and enjoy them, then I'm going to give you links to specific videos on the free YouTube channel that you can use. I'll tell you, do such and such Qigong routine from this video. And then I will tell you what rune we're going to use. I will give you the mantra. I will give you, that. If you are subscribed to the 90-day challenge, which I recommend everybody do, you've got nothing to lose. You can try it out for 1 month. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. You got nothing to lose. If you go to thunderwizard.com, click around for Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, then I'm going to tell you how to use the butterfly hands, which is another aspect of the mirror exercise. how you can use that in order to use the power of the mirror to reflect back to our those people who are acting like our enemies, those people who are, the psychopaths who are doing the world tremendous damage. We're going to use the mirror to reflect their power against them. And for those of you who are doing this, the Mao Shan, I'm going to tell you how to use these practices in the most powerful way. And in my experience, again, the power of this stuff is, I've never seen anything like it. I've literally, and I'm not making this up, I've literally walked into rooms, especially when I was training. And I was training hard every day for hours and hours. I'd walk into a room, and in one case, somebody bolted up like they were a marionette on strings, and then as if something else just grabbed them and then just pulled them out of the room. Again, they looked like a puppet on a string. They were just almost floating out of the room. And later on, I talked to that person, and because I was actually doing, in the corner, I was doing this stuff in the corner. And I said, "What the hell was that all about?" The person said, "What were you doing?" I said, "I was just doing my physical exercises. What do you care?" And he said, "Whatever it was, it went right through me. And the next thing I knew, I was up and walking out the door." And it turns out that person had been interacting with a ghost in their house. So disembodied spirits do not like this, which is demons. Demons do not like this. I'm the last guy that you want to bring onto one of those ghost investigations. Because if I show up, no ghosts are going to show up. Because the vibration of this energy gets rid of anything negative. And by the way, ghosts are not the souls of dead people. Ghosts are the lower self of a person that did not achieve any kind of awareness or died in negative circumstances, and their lower self, which is their psyche, which is not, you're not your psyche. My name is so-and-so, I live here, I like this, I don't like that, I'm afraid of this. That's your psyche, and that is a whole different thing that you create. Your identity of who you think you are is a complete construct. It's not who you are. When you die, your soul separates from your body. Your higher self goes wherever it goes. Your lower self will go back into the earth and become an earth spirit. Unless you died tragically or with unresolved emotional issues, then your ego, your identity will get squished out onto the earthly plane, and it thinks it's you, but it's not. You're off somewhere else. Your soul is somewhere else getting ready for the next life or whatever it's doing in bliss. You're taking on a whole different identity. You don't even remember who you were. But if you squeezed out a ghost on your lower self onto this world, it walks around and it does the same thing. And if it's conscious, which some of them are, if you say, "Hey, you need to go to the light," what does it do? It gets pissed off. It gets angry. By the way, all of those of you who listen to me who are afraid to go into the light, you are basically setting things up so that you will create a ghost that you will leave onto this earth, which will frighten people and haunt people. Because what do ghosts do? It wants the treasure. It keeps jumping off the cliff and committing suicide every day because they got rejected at the altar. It's always upset about something. You never see a happy ghost. You never hear anybody talk about a happy ghost, ever. Even the ghosts, like for instance, I heard from my landlords actually told me about their niece who gets woken up in the middle of the night by this very soft hand caressing her face. And she wakes up and it's her grandmother. But it freaks her out. So grandma doesn't do that. Grandma doesn't want to freak you out. Grandma's soul is not interested in waking you up in the middle of the night and frightening you. Even if it's loving you. That's grandma. That's grandma. When grandma died, grandma was thinking about how much she's going to miss her grandchildren and she doesn't want to die, so she squeezed that out. And that being goes around and follows the grandkids and, I still love you. I'm still here. No, you're not here. Grandma's somewhere else. That's a ghost. And the thing to do is to say, hey, you're bothering me. Leave me alone. You know, one of the things I find interesting about, people are so afraid of ghosts. But if you walked into your house and there was a homeless guy sitting on your couch watching TV and eating food and say, hey, what's going on? You'd be like, what the hell are you doing in my house? You'd call the cops and you'd say, there's some homeless guy broke into my house and he's eating Cheetos. He's eating my Cheetos and he's watching television. He's drinking my beer. The cops would come over and get rid of the guy. And you wouldn't go like if you walked in and the homeless guy was there, you wouldn't go, oh, don't look, don't say anything. There's a homeless guy right there. Don't shh. If we don't say anything, he'll go away. And this is what people do about ghosts. Oh my God, a ghost. Oh, there's an intruder in your house. Tell him to get the hell out. He doesn't belong here. That's how you talk to ghosts. You say, you don't belong here. You're not a real person. They'll get mad and they'll say, yes, I am. Or they'll throw a cup around or flicker the lights on and off. You say, knock it off. You don't belong in my house. You're not even real. Get the hell out of here. Then you do a ritual and you light some sage and it frightens them away. But it's just, again, people are so afraid of. If it was a physical person, you might be afraid, but you would respond very differently. Anyway, I got off track there. Did somebody ask a question in the meantime there? All right. Guy Home, question. Hello, Mahadeva. As we summon Narasimha, will it unleash the power of thunder against the elites as he appeared from a pillar like a thunderbolt? I think you just answered your own question. Can we compare to Thor destroying the giants? Yes, we can. Same idea. Jedi Black Knight has a great suggestion for somebody who is unable to get PayPal. He says, consider browser masking to work around the PayPal ban. There are things you can do, like, I don't know what I forget how it is, but you can Google how to access the how to get forbidden internet. There's ways to get around these governmental bans. There's ways around it. Jedi Black Knight question, please forgive if it sounds stupid. When temples are made for ancestors and other departed souls, are they actually directed towards their lower selves? No. I would say no. I would say that temples do the opposite. That Halloween used to be actually talking to the souls of the departed, not ghosts. So as it turns out, around October 31st, and I think it varies from year to year what the exact date is, but there's a time in that period of the fall where the veil between the living and the dead is the thinnest. So that was actually used traditionally, at least in Vedic times, that you would do a ritual and have your ancestors appear in front of you and give you advice. Now, I don't think it was the normal thing where you sit there and you say, hi, how are you? And they say, I'm fine. It's more like it's this transfer of energy that happens. But I experienced that a lot. You can face the Northwest and do that on a daily basis, and you will access the true ancestors. So ghosts are always seen as negative. And this is unfortunately what happened with Halloween. What they were afraid of, I think it was a Celtic thing, which, it's interesting because I was here in Australia and nobody does anything for Halloween here. You don't see, big giant crowds of kids walking around, trick or treating. You don't see that. You don't go to the store and you're not just swamped with, Halloween costumes and it's not like the States. They just don't do that here. What was I going to say about that? But yeah, it was a Celtic thing, and they were afraid that your that your deceased ancestor, if you had wronged them, would rise from the grave and come and get you. So people dressed like evil, scary monsters to frighten them off. And they carved, I don't know if they used pumpkins in Ireland or whatever, but that's where it came from. You carve an ugly face and put a lantern in it. It was about scaring off your ancestors that were coming to get revenge on you for whatever you did wrong to them. So, anyways. Jameson Son question regarding Taoist masters embracing strong emotions as fuel. I don't know if I said that. That sounds predatory. If I'm hearing you right, that sounds like you're saying that the ancestors feed off of your emotions. Am I hearing that right? That sounds predatory to me. I don't know if I've taught that. If I have, as I read it now, that doesn't sound... The ancestors are here to give you. They're not here to take anything from you. That's the other thing. A ghost steals your energy. That tells you that a ghost is not a soul of a human being. So then you go on to say, would chanting the corresponding ad hoc singular 5-element sound be a method to sit with feeling, or should one always do the sequences? I'm okay with you chanting one of the elements, if you want to focus on the earth element, for example. But when you're done focusing on that one element, then you need to chant all 5 of them, because you don't want to overload one of the elements. So the safest thing to do, again, is to just do all 5, because if there's one that's out of balance, you're going to fix it. So it sounds a little overkill to me. It sounds like it's coming from fear. Again, always use these practices coming from the assumption of power. That you're empowered, you are a god walking this earth, and so wanting balance of all the 5 elements is a very helpful assumption. All right, nothing else? All right, so you can also go to my other platforms where I talk about things that I'm not allowed to talk about here on YouTube. And while I get to that, you should look up the Trusted News Initiative. Everybody should be aware of this thing called the Trusted News Initiative. Go Google it. Let's see, where was I? Where's my thing? Right here. So everybody go Google Trusted News Initiative. Go Google that. Google itself is part of the Trusted News Initiative. And because of the Trusted News Initiative, I have to go other places to be able to speak my uncensored truth. So, this isn't for everybody. For some people, knowing less is better. Just focus on staying positive and you'll be all right. But for those of you, if you really want to dig deep into the rabbit hole, you can go there. So there's one link. You can go directly to that one. There's another one, which is the mirror of this channel, in case, God forbid, this channel gets completely deplatformed, which I'm working hard to make sure that doesn't happen. But that risk is always there. YouTube has said and has told me specifically that they can shut anybody down at any time for any reason without any recourse. So, in case that ever happens, you can go to this channel, which is a mirror of this and has almost all of my other stuff from this on there, but it's a glitchy site, so sometimes that's why I prefer the BitChute instead of that. All right, and a question has just popped up. Levi Spears, question. Did some hool breath. Are you saying you did some hool breath? It's really good to have a subject, a verb and an object. So I'm assuming you did some hool breath. You did some hool breath stuff, had a very lucid dream to the point where I woke up thinking it was real. Any thoughts? That sounds like a lucid dream. I mean, the word lucid dream means that it's a dream that seems real. I've had lucid dreams that felt more real than this reality. So those are my thoughts. I mean, it exists. I mean, you get to determine whether or not you left your body, you went to another realm. The other thing to know is that your unconscious mind is also very real, and your unconscious mind is a realm within itself. So you can be traveling, infinitely through the underworld, which is your unconscious, and there are places and beings and all that kind of stuff, and they're just as real. Jameson Song, clarifications. It was off topic and not to do with ancestors. It was when I told you of difficult, strong emotions, and that the masters would say, hey, this anger or sadness is something to delight in. Oh, so they're telling you to use your own emotions as fuel. Got it. Yeah, your emotions are fuel. Emotion, energy in motion. And this is by the way, this has been the most powerful way of using this. Is that, I'm one of these people that I have too much emotion in one body, which is why I have to surf, which is why I have to lift weights, which is why I have to do this stuff. Because if I don't, my emotions build up and they become toxic within me. And it's very damaging to me. So, yeah, your emotions are fuel. And this stuff actually gives you the ability to have them. So this is why a lot of you who are doing this stuff and this stuff, you contact me and you say, I don't know, I'm doing this stuff, but it's making me feel a lot of intense stuff. I'm like angry and I'm sad and I'm all this. It's like, yeah, that stuff was always there. It's just we tune it out because we can't consciously handle it, or we're told we guilt ourselves out of it. So this allows us to have all of these feelings and then express them, and then those feelings become ways that we actually create more power. I mean, how do you think Dr. Manhattan became who he was? I took it out of this sequence, but in the sequence of it, as he's talking about becoming Dr. Manhattan, first he appears as like a circulatory system, and then he appears as the nervous system, and then you see, this partially formed, like, human being, smash against the wall because he's trying to pound himself back into reality. And that's a good example of all of the feelings coming up, and instead of letting it destroy you, you do this practice to get it out, to flesh it out. And then when it's fully expressed, it then becomes this energy that becomes fueling to you. And the only way to get it is by accepting all of your feelings. Accepting all of your thoughts and your feelings without any judgment. Happy, sad, angry, furious, whatever it is. In fact, one of the ways that you know that you're being attacked by a demon when you do this stuff is that you'll do the set and then you'll find yourself feeling really sad, and then you can't move. That's a sign that there's a spirit in there trying to stop you. So the thing to do is then to just relax in it and then keep doing the practice until your feelings come back. And when your feelings come back, you know that you've driven the spirit away. And then you do the practice and you get all the feelings out. And then when all the feelings are out, all of a sudden your body will just go, ah. And then you'll be relaxed, and then you'll just want to go and sleep. And that means that you've worked through it. Jameson Son, honest feelings. Experienced extreme anger recently, sat with it, then took constructive action. Now a confrontation and an air clearing is looming. I feel worried that I will lash out if I don't process. You may lash out. I'm hoping, I don't know if this is with somebody who's conscious or not. If it's somebody who's conscious, tell them. And I want to encourage you to do that with me, Jameson. I want you to feel free to do that in the beginning of our sessions. If something comes up that's bothering you that I've done or said, I want you to tell me. I want you to say, I need to start off this session by getting out some negative feelings. Get in the habit of doing that. If it's not somebody who's conscious, then usually clearing the air is probably the last thing you want to do, because there's no point in trying to be conscious with somebody who's committed to being unconscious. Okay, Root, welcome to the channel. This is a question and answer, which means that if you have a question, you write the word question. If you have a feeling, you write the word feeling. Nothing personal, but I'm not interested in you coming into my classroom and pontificating about something. Okay, and do that on your own channel. So this looks like this is and the reason I'm saying that is because you're obviously new to the channel and you've just exposed yourself as talking about something that I have probably a very different opinion about, which you may not like my response to it. So this is why I always say people should only either ask an honest question or share an honest feeling, because otherwise you're setting yourself up to have me come at you if you don't happen to be on where I'm at with it. So you say, psychedelics help me explore my unconscious. After a certain time, it's so good not needing them to explore further and learn. So I appreciate that you no longer need them. Let me preface what I'm about to say with, in the traditional way, when you're working with a traditional master who that is part of their culture, that, in my experience, is the only recommended path of using psychedelics. I do not recommend using psychedelics in any other way. In fact, I do not recommend, although I won't rule it out, I do not recommend that anybody from a Western country use psychedelics. Psychedelics are a part of a culture of people who live in unity with their environment. These are people who they understand. They have a healthy, individuated psyche that has a completely different understanding of reality. And so when they work with psychedelics, the shaman, in fact, in traditional circles, the shaman will look at you and look at your aura, and the majority of the time will say, you're not going to do this practice now. We're going to do this ritual and you're not going to do that. You're going to drum with me, but you're not going to take any of the medicine. And then if they see somebody that needs it, they'll say, you need to do this. While they're doing that, they are drumming, they are chanting. There's usually a week of fasting where you have to get your body prepared for this cleansing. It's understood that what you are taking. She says, Dakota Spruill says, Western countries besides South and Central America. Is that what I said? Don't speak for me. I didn't say that. When I say Western countries, I mean somebody who lives in the Western world. And South and Central America is the Western world. Just because somebody lives there doesn't mean that they're not part of the Western framework, mental framework. I'm talking about a native person who's grown up in a native culture that has not been ingested and incorporated into Western society. There's a lot of people with native DNA in them, but they're 100% Western or some kind of. So no, don't speak for me, Dakota. I appreciate the fact that you might have a different opinion about it. And I appreciate you might even have a different experience about it. But there's no need for you to defend this. If somebody does it, I've never told people not to do anything. You want to go do it, go do it. Just be aware of what you're doing. My experience with people in Western societies is that they are not psychologically built for it. They don't understand it. And the majority of Westerners who do psychedelics are coming from a wounded place. They are coming from the Western assumption, which is that, just like the science we talked about earlier, you are a victim. God has, you're a sinful person and God has thrown you onto the blah. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not. Everybody in the Western world has been programmed to have this assumption on an unconscious level. And I don't believe that anybody who's wounded, who needs to fix that deep spiritual wound, should take psychedelics. To get to your question, you said, or your statement root, you said it helped you explore your unconscious. So here's the danger with psychedelics. Your unconscious mind is your positive and your negative. It also has all of your assumptions, your fears. And what happens with people who actually do any kind of drug for the effect, especially people who are addicted. Again, people who are addicted or use chemicals recreationally, they're doing it to escape. They're doing it to escape a wound. Even if you're doing it for entertainment, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Whenever you do anything based on that, you end up running the risk of having your unconscious mind completely, totally control you. This is what's called a bad trip. You know, people take acid and they have a bad trip. You have a bad trip because your unconscious mind is not balanced. Just to give you an example, this was way back in the 60s and 70s when people thought that dropping acid was some kind of, enlightening experience, like it was a medicine, that you could take it and you'd see God or whatever. That was the hippie thing. And they gave it to, I don't know who it was a Zen master. So this is a guy who spent his whole life meditating, dealing with his unconscious. That's the whole point of Zen, is to become aware of your unconscious and not respond to it. And they gave him LSD, and he took it. Nothing happened. And they asked him about it, and he said, yeah, I had a headache. He had no experience whatsoever. Had a headache. Another guy, I think this was Ram Dass, talked about this, where he gave one of his teachers, said, oh, give me that. And he took like more than was, he was supposed to take, and he took it. And he said, I'm trying to show you something, that this doesn't mean anything. This doesn't affect me. It's because he's clear with his unconscious. So when you take psychedelics and you have a crazy experience, guess what that means? It means that you have not mastered your unconscious yet. So the danger is that your unconscious will master you. So again, if somebody understands that and they go do it, but the thing is, there's no reason to do it. This was from an earlier time period. Psychedelics were used by the Vedics, and they were used by the Taoists, until the Vedics and the Taoists discovered that they could release DMT naturally and have much deeper spiritual experiences. They could leave their body. Taoists can leave their body at will. They can close their eyes, leave their body, go to whatever realm they want at will. That's what this stuff will give you. And there's no negative side effects. You don't have to puke your guts out or crap your jeans. There are people who have taken ayahuasca and have been permanently damaged. This is not a joke. So it's not that I'm some old fart that's against any of this stuff. The reason I do this stuff is to get high. That's the first reason I do it is because it gets me so freaking high. And when I do my practice and then I meditate, I am off. I am in other places. I am no longer in this realm. Without any external stimulation, without ingesting any external substance, and without any of the negative side effects. The other thing that's important to know is when you do this work, your pineal and your pituitary get stronger, which means that you're able to produce more and more DMT. When you take ayahuasca, you're taking an external form of DMT, which actually forces your pineal to squeeze out what it has. Your nervous system, your pineal monitors all of the things in your bloodstream, including DMT. And when you have more DMT than your body has decided it wants to release, it shuts down production. This is why afterwards people have to heal, and it takes them a while to get back to normal again, because the brain has to fire itself back up. This is doing violence to your body. This is doing violence to your nervous system, to your endocrine system, this is why, again, traditionally, the shamans had to do all this work, because in reality, you're doing violence to yourself. But that's the spiritual technology that they had 10,000 years ago. They didn't have this stuff. They didn't have Kundalini yoga. They didn't have deep Taoist meditation. They didn't have Qigong. So they had to use the plant helpers to help them. But there's always a price to pay for this stuff. Always. So I don't recommend it for that reason. Number one, it's damaging. Most people have no idea what they're doing. They're doing it for the wrong reason, and they're actually doing themselves damage. They're going deeper and deeper into their unconscious delusions instead of coming out of them. I'm not saying you can't have a powerful experience where you saw and you learned from it. That's great. But it's like, again, if you want to go down a slalom course, you can either be on an electric motorcycle or you can be in an 18-wheeler. It's just not effective. And it takes away your power of determination. So that's why I recommend all this stuff. And if you don't believe me, then I challenge you to prove me wrong. I encourage you to do, I'll give it to you again. I'll give you the link to it. I've given out this link before, but people have in the past got on my case because how dare you charge money for spiritual practices? You should be giving this stuff out for free. Of course, I've been giving it out for free since the beginning of this channel. Just to, if for nothing else, just to silence them, I have free practices that are more powerful. I'm challenging you to find a more powerful practice than what I'm going to give to you for free right now. I just got to find it so I can give you the link to it here. Come on, where are you? Somebody knows what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, right? Come on, YouTube. You're supposed to work with me. It's the one that says the most powerful. Come on, man. Give me a break. What's the next one? Next page. There it is. Nope, that's a different one. There it is. Most powerful energy practice on earth. All right, so here's the link for that. I challenge any of you, if you're new to my channel, I challenge you to go to this link and do the practices that I give to you for free. I challenge you to do them for a month. Do them every day for a month, and then come back and tell me that they aren't the most powerful energy practices you've ever done. I challenge you to do that. Bear in mind that the stuff that people pay for is even more concentrated and more powerful. I've had Tai Chi masters, Qigong masters, spiritual masters come back and say, I've been doing energy work, I've been doing Tai Chi, I've been doing Qigong my whole life. I did that one practice, it was the most powerful thing I've ever experienced. I've never experienced anything on a level that vibrated at that level. It's because this is the most powerful energy practice on the planet in my experience. And it's a completely different energy. It's the lightning energy of the heart, which is even more powerful than Qi or Kundalini. And it is dormant unless you know the keys to unlock it. And this is what the lightning Qigong and the Maoshan practices are all about. All right, what else? Leslie O'Neill question. I've been doing Qigong for a month now. Last night I woke up feeling like I had an electrical shock in my shoulders and arms. Do you think energy work or Qigong may cause something like this? Yeah. I mean, are you doing my Qigong? Are you doing somebody else's Qigong? But yeah, what's going to happen a lot of times is that when the meridians are blocked, they're going to open. So a lot of times people will experience, like they'll do the Qigong and they'll feel like pain, in certain places, and that worries them. And it's like, no, calm down, don't do as much, but just keep relaxing. It means that also you're unconsciously resisting the awareness that's coming, and so your meridians shut down. But it's like having a hose that's kinked. It's like it's kinked, but once you unwind it, then all the water comes shooting out. So it means that your meridians are balancing, your nervous system is balancing, and maybe they're opening up, and there was a sort of an electrical kind of explosion that happened, but these things will leave. If not, then, you know, there may be something wrong and you may need to go see a acupuncturist. Let's see what else. Root, question. When you write the word question, Root, write it in all caps. You see above you, they wrote it in all caps. That's so that I won't miss it. The whole point of you writing the word question is so that I don't miss your question. So write that word in all caps so that I can see it. I'm from Finland in a small town. Recent psychedelic usages for me have been alone, mostly observing what I feel and try to understand what my fears are. Would you recommend not doing it again? I would recommend not doing it again for this one reason. It's unnecessary. There are practices that go beyond that, where you don't have to do something, you know, take an external chemical that's going to force an experience on you. It's unnecessary. It's not as powerful. The exercises that I teach you how to do, you can do every single day, and it will never damage you. Anybody who says that psychedelics aren't dangerous is an idiot. Even if they acknowledge the benefits of it, if they don't acknowledge the dangers of it, they're complete idiots. You're ingesting poison. One of the reasons you're having a spiritual experience is because you're forcing your body to go through a near-death experience. That's why people leave their body. When people take ayahuasca and they talk about how they're floating above their body that's puking and shitting. They'll like talk about it like it's some kind of badge of honor. Yeah, I was watching my body and I was puke and shit coming out both ends. And wow, man, I mean, your spirit left your body because your body's having a near-death experience from having poisoned yourself. You know, of course I would recommend that you don't do it again. So Root says, very interesting. Didn't think of pineal gland shutting down after taking psychedelics. Makes perfect sense. It does. That's why this is the same thing with cocaine. This is the same thing with meth. This is the same thing with marijuana. The reason why people who do marijuana, why they end up being very unmotivated, they end up being very lazy, they end up having to smoke weed to be able to get out of bed and do things, is for that very reason. Is because all of the feel-good chemicals in the brain, when you smoke weed, they flood the brain, and then the pineal goes, whoa, 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 shut down production now. And your body shuts down all production, which makes you need to smoke weed again so you can get yourself back up to that state of inspiration. But it keeps you stuck in your head. And it's the same with cocaine, same thing. Cocaine releases all kinds of feel-good chemicals, and the body goes, whoa, let's stop production of those things. And then what happens? You crash, and then you're addicted. Yeah, you should never, ever have to rely on anything outside of you. Anytime you are dependent on anything outside of you to give you an experience, I mean, you're already at a disadvantage right there. When you do the celestial qigong or the spirit fighting, you are releasing the power that's already within you. You're not dependent on anything else. This is why the Taoists can close their eyes and leave their body instantly. They don't have to do anything. They have the power to, they have all those things ready to go. Leslie O'Neill, okay, so you've been doing celestial qigong. Yeah, so you're doing celestial qigong. You had an electrical shock in your shoulders and arms. It means that those meridians are waking up, assuming that's what caused it. Did you take the reptilian Cylon upgrade? Did you end up, are you too stressed out? Did you get, hit in the back of the head with a boomerang? Then it might be something else causing that electrical shock. But if the only thing that you've been doing out of the ordinary that you can think of that would have done it is the celestial qigong, then it is because the meridians are opening up. And that's a good thing. It'll pass. Lushka, question. Mahadeva, I have been doing the two practices of nighttime practice and morning practice, talking about the 90-day lightning Qigong, which you can get here at thunderwizard.com. For a while now, and today woke up too late to do the morning. Is it wise not to do the nighttime? No, you can do the nighttime. Look, there are practices that if I were to teach somebody, which I don't have right now, but if I had a physical apprentice that met with me physically and I were teaching them really high level stuff, there would be stuff where you would have to follow my exact instructions and do exactly what I tell you, or you could damage yourself. When I started teaching online, the Celestial Qigong, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, you guys can go to, I believe that this will take you there. Celestial Qigong.thunderwizard. No, celestialqigong.com. Sorry. I believe it's just that. Celestialqigong.com. I believe that's mine. If you go there, you'll see what they're talking about. What was I saying? Something about Celestial Qigong. So when I created that, I knew that anybody that I teach through video, that they're going to get it wrong, they're going to do things out of sequence, and then there are going to be people who are going to think that they know what they're doing, and they're going to choose to do it out of sequence. They're not going to listen to my instructions. I know, because I've done that. So if I ever teach something on video, it's because I set it up so that people can screw it up and they won't hurt themselves. So if you missed the morning practice, so what? Go do the evening practice. Look, I say in the beginning, you can do this however you want. You can do it in the morning, you can do the morning, noon, and night. You can just do the night, or you can just do the morning. You know, you can do the morning one day and then the night one other day. You know, I mean, you can mix and match and treat it like a smorgasbord. You can, in the morning practice, there's a bunch of different practices. You can take those out of order and play around with it and see what feels better, just as long as you ground yourself. So this stuff, you know, again, I want people to feel free. I want people to enjoy this. This should be fun. You know, I appreciate people are disciplined about it. But the only thing that really you need to worry about in terms of discipline is try to be consistent and try and do what you know you can do. So if you know that you can only commit to doing something like that 3 days a week, then commit to 3 days a week. Stick with that. I think you'll be better off if you do it every day, but I've gone through, you know, big chunks of time in my life where I haven't done everything every day, or I just do one thing at night. You know, this isn't a religion. You shouldn't have to feel guilty. Of course, like anything, you know, if you work out every day, you train every day, you meditate every day, you're gonna get better long-lasting results, and you'll have a lot of benefit just from the experience of living in that discipline. You know, it'll be good for you, but by no means do you need to treat it like a religion. What else? Okay, Lushka likes the hool and the waterfall. I do too. I do those on a daily basis myself. All right, that's it. No other questions? All right, guys, thank you for your time. I hope that everything I said was helpful. If I came on too strong, if I was harsh with anybody, I hope that you understand it's coming from my desire to be helpful, even if sometimes I make a mistake and I'm a little harsh. It's coming from a good place, and I really do want everybody, you know, especially right now, what we need, all of us right now, this time is such a difficult, horrific time in history. And what everybody really needs now is to be kind to themselves and to be kind and loving to others. Healing is just the most important thing that the world needs right now. And whatever anger we have needs to be focused on those narcissistic reptilians that are actually, you know, the level of psychopathic narcissism and destruction that is going on against human beings on a daily basis is unconscionable. So our rage needs to be focused on them. I strongly recommend that you learn to say no, that you refuse to comply with anything that goes against your instincts of self-preservation. You have the right over your own mind and your own body. Do not let anybody take that from you. No job is worth it. No relationship is worth it. No citizenship in any country is worth it. Nothing is worth your soul. Don't give up. If you've been anointed, had the reptilian anointing, then go and search online for all the things that people can do to heal themselves from that. I can't talk about that on this channel. All right, let's see what else. Flame 160 question. I'm just curious, how many people do you think still do these practices around the world? I don't know which practices you're talking about. Are you talking about these practices? These practices were kept secret. So there's never been a lot of people that done them. It's possible that there are more people doing these practices now than ever before in history. Because of me. I was told to never reveal this. I was told never to talk about it. I was told to never reveal it. And I was told it was too powerful. In fact, when I first learned this, I came home and to get into the class, to learn it. I mean, if my teacher, maybe he knows I'm doing it, maybe not. I mean, he and I are not in contact anymore because, personal issues. But if 25 years ago, if he were to see that I was showing this stuff online like this, he would have flipped out. He would have said, don't ever show that. I had to be taken into class. In order to even learn it, I had to be invited. I had to be invited by one of the other students, and it was like getting into the mafia. Your friend who invites you in vouches for you. So they're responsible for you if you do something, that you're not supposed to do. And one of them is, you can't go out and beat people up. You can't use this energy for anything. This is, you have to follow all these rules. So I'm breaking all those rules. But we live in the most dangerous time that I can remember, that in my entire life. There's never been a more dangerous time to be alive in terms of dealing with government and psychopaths in high places. It's a very dangerous time. You don't have to worry about it. If you take care of yourself and follow your soul, you'll be bulletproof. But the danger is giving in and letting them do things to you. We can't let them do that. So to answer your question, there's more people doing it now than ever. If you want to ask me how many people in the traditional sense of the word are really doing it in the traditional way, the last Grand Master of this practice passed away recently. I don't know how many other people can be seen as a master. I don't represent myself as a master of this. My teacher's not a master. Even his teacher, who is as close to a master as you can get, even he says he's not a master. And I agree with him. He's mastered the energy and he's mastered the art, but he is not a spiritual master, unless he's changed. Last time I saw him, he had a lot of emotional evolution to go through. I did not consider him a spiritual master. I found him to be lacking in that, but he had a lot of power. So how many people? I don't know, probably a handful, if any. It might have died. Because the honest truth is that, even the level that I got to, and I got to a level that if you compared me to the average person, like when I was practicing 4 hours a day at, my peak, I was untouchable. I mean, I was like physically, the only people that could touch me would be the guys who were more powerful than I in the same sect. Anybody else, it was just out of the question. And I was nowhere near. There's something that that happens when you've achieved true mastery of it. There's a thing that happens, which I won't talk about here, which I didn't achieve. Well, that's not true. I achieved it. I didn't achieve it in the exact way that those guys did. I achieved it in another way, but I won't get into that. So to answer your question, in the spirit that you asked it, possibly nobody. If so, there's a very small handful of people, and many of them will never admit to it. They'll never admit that they do it. All right, what else? Vincent.thunderwizard.com. I do wish you luck getting out on your own. You will accomplish it. You will accomplish it. Baba Junzo, honest feeling. I feel very attracted to the martial aspect of the lightning Qigong. I've always been drawn to things similar from TV. Yeah, me too. Nothing wrong with that. It's easily, well, in my experience, when you taught from somebody who knows how to use it martially, there's no martial art that can come close to it. Every single person, I don't do this, but every single person in the past that wanted to, spar with me, every single one walked away with this look on their face. I'm talking about guys that that train people for the octagon. We're talking about guys at the elite level of mixed martial arts. They wanted to spar with me, and afterwards they were like, So it's a fabulous martial art if you can get somebody who can teach it to you. If I get to I'm moving to Florida. I don't know what's going to happen after that, because I'm trying to avoid all the mandates. And obviously here for the past 2.5 years, it's been impossible for me to have people come travel to Australia and learn from me, because Australia has been and is still in a lockdown bubble and nothing gets in or out. But when I get back to the States, I'll start talking about creating seminars where people can come travel and work with me. And if somebody wants to learn the martial arts, I'm open to doing that. That can only be taught in person, of course. I just got a good feeling saying that, so that maybe that'll happen. Flux Pavilion. Don't ask me about things that I don't teach. I don't know what a cyclone jab. Oh, I see what. Sorry, I know. The Cylon. So first off, don't ask me about things that are going to get me shut down. So I don't know about what you just wrote down there. I've talked about the Cylon upgrade. I've talked about the reptilian anointing. And if you don't know what that means, you can go on to my odyssey.com, ODYSEE.com, and look for my, my code words. But I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. What do I think the reptilian anointing has on the soul? It only has an effect on the soul if you let it. I do believe that there are things that we can take, medications and vitamins and nutraceuticals and herbs and things like that, which can reverse the damage. So I do believe that, and so I don't, if you've survived the reptilian anointing, great. There's every reason to believe that you're going to be just fine. And even those who have suffered damage, I believe that there's every reason to believe that you can reverse that. I'm not, maybe I'll get somebody on one of those other platforms to talk about it, or, I'll find those videos and repost them up there. But in terms of the soul, it doesn't have any effect on the soul unless you let it. If you don't let it affect you, nothing can touch you. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake. Nothing wrong with it. The biggest damage is if you do it it's one thing, I've known people who, by the way, I almost got it. I was this close to getting it. The only reason I didn't was because I did due diligence and I did some research and I asked some questions. I asked people who had gotten the anointing, hey, did you have a good experience, bad experience? Do you know anybody that's had a bad experience from it? And they told me a lot of really scary stuff. And I went, well, that doesn't sound like a very good idea. I don't think I want to do that. And then I started doing research into forbidden medications and found out, oh, holy crap. Are you telling me that this whole time we could have wiped it out with that forbidden medication? Well, then what the hell's going on here? And then I realized, oh, this is a reptilian plot to destroy the world. So the people who don't know any better and they made a mistake, your soul's fine. You're only required to just follow what you know to be true and do your best. It's the people who do it out of fear of losing a job or losing a relationship or not being good enough or not. That's a potential damage to the soul, but that's only because your own shame will damage you. Because you know that you're acting against yourself out of fear or out of greed or whatever. That's the only thing that damages you. But even then, all you have to do is just own up to it, become aware, and then follow your soul from then on. That's all that anybody ever has to do. There's no hell. There's no, if you deny the Holy Spirit, you go to hell. None of that exists. The universe never punishes you, even if you work against yourself. We're all here trying to overcome this. And everybody has, up until the last minute of your death, you have the opportunity to turn things around and follow your soul. Everybody does. There's no, you don't get held after school. There's no detention. Everybody, the universe just doesn't play those games. Anything that you consider to be karma is karma that you bring on yourself, that you choose to go through because you want to learn it. The universe doesn't force you to do anything. What else? Is the movie They Live with Roddy Piper a great example of what's happening right now? I think that you've answered your own question. That is a great movie. Okay, so, all right, great. So those are some, people are giving out some things you can do to get your, to reduce the anointing damage. All right, so that's it for me then. No questions, we're all done. I've done, the links are all here, use them. I've given you links up there to go, I'll just, once again, where I gave you links to go to my Odyssey and my BitChute, and I gave you a link to do rituals in case you want to, if you want to take my challenge. And I can't copy that. Oh, there it is. I'll give it to you again. Go do this. If you want, I challenge you to go to this link that I'm sending you here. I challenge you to go there and do those practices for a month and tell me that you haven't changed drastically. I dare you to prove me wrong, that stuff won't change it. Facebook Junzo. A question is an entire sentence. Thoughts on the Facebook meta. I'm not going to talk about here. My thoughts are, go Google Trusted News Initiative. And then Google the word propaganda. Then Google the word or the phrase state run media. And then you know what my thoughts are on all of that stuff. All right, that's it for me, guys. I'll see you next time. Stay safe. What do I want to talk about here? Let's. Oh, and by the way, the water set is now up. So now we have 4 of the 5 sets. We need the water set right now to put out all the fire that's going on. All right, that's it for me.